Who is Alex Mandossian? Well, I'm the son of George and Carol Mandossian. I was born in Hollywood, California in 1964. And at age 4, I knew that I would be a teacher. My mother is a teacher, an educator for over 50 years. My father's a teacher. My sister has a master's in a teaching degree. My brother-in-law, her husband, is a teacher. Both grandparents on both sides were teachers, and I knew I would be a teacher. But it turns out I became my family's only multimillionaire, and they still don't know what I do. But I think the reason I've been successful in business is because I teach teachers. And there's a legacy and compounding effect as a result of that. I'm a trainer's trainer. My favorite thing is to train trainers. I do 3 things well. I create curriculum, I deliver curriculum, and then I teach others to do the same, and that's the train the trainer concept. And so I'm very proud to be able to have a lifetime goal of being responsible for training 1 million trainers. And I can't do that by myself. I would be training others to train others to train others, and so on and so forth. And that way, as Gandhi said, we can become the change that we want to see in the world. The biggest driving factor for me to teach is that I believe teaching is the greatest source of love in the universe, for a lack of a better term. Love meaning expansion, fear meaning contraction. So when teaching, someone else has the seed of the equal or above equal benefit of what you're giving. And one of the most interesting things is when I teach students, my goal for them is for them to surpass me. And when they surpass me, it's very irritating and annoying to me, but that's one of the greatest gifts. And if I can overcome a little bit of resentment, maybe a little bit of jealousy, and all those human emotions that pop up, it just makes me a better person, and I want to be remembered as a great dad, a great teacher, and a great human being. So teaching is a big part of that purpose. Well, T. Harv Eker is special to me as a friend, as a mentor, and as a partner. He has more experience than I do in the seminar and teaching business, and I've learned much from him. We came through parallel paths, so although I didn't study under him, I studied with him, and we learned from many of the same sources with our teaching ability and our teaching style. The reason I think T. Harv Eker is the world's best at what he does is because he's not only a great teacher, author, speaker, but he's also a great marketer. And marketing is very difficult for many teachers and authors and speakers. They know how to deliver content, but they don't know how to create the context in order to have people watching their content. And so Harv not only can fill the room, but he can deliver to the room so that the room is engaged, enrolled, and he changes millions of lives in the process. I'm proud to call him my friend and my partner and my mentor. Success Resources is the world's largest seminar company, and the 2 individuals that run it, Richard and Veronica Tan, I consider are my rich dad and rich mom in my life, just the rich dad, poor dad concept, right? And they've made such an impact on the world. And so when T. Harv Eker and the Tans got together with Success Resources to bring T. Harv Eker's courses to the rest of the world outside of the United States, it made a big impact. The United States company is Peak Potentials, which is owned now by Success Resources, and Success Resources has its tentacles and its net cast on every continent except for Antarctica, and I'm sure once there are enough people and penguins there to learn the training, it'll be taught there as well. But Harv is a teacher's teacher and a trainer's trainer, so he knows how to duplicate himself without his visual and physical presence there. And so as a result, he's trained others to train his curriculum, and the curriculum is so duplicable that it can't only be taught by him, it can be taught by others, and that way it is embraced literally by millions. And that's what makes a great teacher, is when your curriculum can be adopted and taught by others. Well, GBI stands for Guerrilla Business Intensive, and it is an intensive. It's very, very intense work that we do for the time that we're working here. And I've taught it on almost every continent in the world. And G stands for Guerrilla, B stands for business, and intensive is self-explanatory. What does Guerrilla mean? Guerrilla means alternative or non-traditional approach. Originally, it was defined as guerrilla warfare, where it was a non-traditional approach where the fighting group would be flanking the enemy and would be going around the side versus hitting him straight on. And so in war, I don't like to think of guerrilla because it takes lives, but in business, it makes money. And so guerrilla means non-traditional, where with very little money, you can have a massive impact, just like a little clan or a little village can have a massive impact on an entire nation, which uprisings have happened through the guerrilla tactics. That's what we do with business. You could say that marketing is warfare in business, and there are winners and losers, but many times there's a win-win where there's co-opetition. And so when you get other like-minded guerrilla business intensive marketers, then actual competitors are getting together and joint venturing because there's so much that can be shared and they can actually refer people to each other. Now, with GBI and the GBI mindset, marketing is applied psychology. Marketing is one of the three things every business does. Every business does production, every business does operations. Those cost the business money, but marketing is the only thing that makes the business money. Unfortunately, when there is an economic downturn, all the budget cuts are in marketing, and operations and production seem to go up when that costs the money for the business, and all of a sudden the business is crippled and sometimes goes into receivership and bankruptcy. So what we do is we put more money into marketing because marketing makes money, and we teach people to focus on marketing as not only a mindset, but that every business is a marketing business. If you're a dentist, you're still a marketer who happens to drill and fix teeth. If you're a chiropractor, you're a marketer who happens to handle back pain or neck pain. If you're an accountant, you're a marketer who happens to deal with numbers, and so on and so forth. So I believe marketers are the rainmakers of the business world, and typically many people give the marketing responsibilities to strangers. And to me, I teach the guerrilla business intensive students, that's like giving a newborn baby, your business, to an orphanage. And that's a travesty. It doesn't make sense. So when my students leave the event, and members of the audience, they know that they're going to learn the marketing so they can responsibly, the ability to respond, give it to people whom they know will do the job, and if there's no one to give it to, then they can do it themselves. Well, with GBI, the growth is done day by day. They come in and they don't know what to expect, they being the students. They get on stage and they meet a complete stranger. I give them why I've earned the right to teach them. I give them vulnerability. I give them heart. I give them conflict. I give them reprimands sometimes. And I'm very tough on them, and I ask their permission if I can train them, and I ask their permission if I can push them, and they say yes. And each day the energy gets higher and higher. We have a saying that everything is energy, and energy is everything. And I believe that. Einstein had a theory about energy that is well known. I believe that there's also another E called engagement. So we create energy in the room through engagement, and we engage and enroll people at GBI versus command and control them. And some seminars command and control, some companies command and control. The command and control days are over. It's the engage and enroll era with social media and with everything being so transparent. So the way these students grow day after day is they learn copywriting, sales through the spoken word and through the written word. They learn marketing, the applied psychology of business, where you can multiply salesmanship and saleswomanship. And they also learn negotiation on how not to take advantage of someone, but how to create a win-win predicament so that both people feel they got the better end of the deal. Those three are like a trifecta in business: negotiation, copywriting, and marketing. That's what I want my kids to learn. That's what Harv's kids know, and that's what I want all children in the future to learn, whether at university, college, or at GBI under my tutelage. The most special moments to me are individuals who have made an impact. A gentleman standing up and saying that he borrowed his last penny to be at the event, and he came with his daughter, and he miraculously found a rich relative who allowed him to continue his education with me. A 6-year-old girl, Indian descent, in Melbourne, Australia, who I did not allow to come because I thought she was too young, and her parents got very angry with me and said, "How dare you?" And I said, "Well, let's see if she can do it." And she was one of the best students in the room, and she was having 70 and 80-year-olds, weeping. A 91-year-old with cataracts, walking with a cane, short-sighted, nearsighted, could barely hear me. And he got up on stage and was dancing, and continued education with us and now has a membership site. So there are numerous examples and stories. There was one incident where I had someone just irate and so upset with me that I was moving so fast because I put pressure on the students to continue. And I told them I wouldn't slow down, but I'd work with them afterwards. And I did work with that person. I don't do it often, but I worked till midnight because I didn't want that person to lose hope. And it turned out the following day that person got the most energetic player award because they just needed that little extra push, and then ended up becoming a student and ended up winning a challenge that we put and set forth after 90 days. So it's all in the students that come out. You know, every time I used to come into a Guerrilla Business Intensive or any training, and I thought I saw two people. One would be hearing the same thing as the other person, but one person would walk out and become a multimillionaire, and the other person would walk out and live a life of obscurity and go broke. And I couldn't understand what was the difference between the two people. They both heard the same thing. They both had the same experience. They both had the same level of heart and energy. They both looked like they were getting the same level of tender love and care from the trainers and the assistant trainers and the Karma crew and everyone involved. So what is it? What was the difference? And then suddenly it hit me. I realized that those aren't two people. Those are two voices within the same person. And it depends on what voice you listen to. If you listen to the I can't voice, then you live the life of obscurity and you die broke, unremembered. But if you listen to the I can voice, and they can be little voices or big voices, but then you can live wealthy. And wealthy isn't just money. Wealth is what you're left with after all the money is gone. So rich and wealthy, leaving a legacy, that's what we're attempting to do at GBI, because business is the language of growth. And with business, people don't think about hunger. People don't think about illiteracy, and people don't engage in war. So if you can get rid of the big three, you know, illiteracy, hunger, and war, I think business is a very good panacea to get rid of all that. And we do that at the level of the citizen, not the corporate executive, but at the solo entrepreneur. We teach them how to create their own businesses and build their own exit strategies so that they can make a fortune for their families and leave a legacy here at GBI. Well, the mindset here at GBI and what T.R. Vecker has attempted is really to elicit the fact that money is important. Without it, you can't create service. Without it, in a capitalistic society and world, you can't create foundations. You can't create nonprofits. You can't create movements. It requires money. You can't create elections for politicians. Now, anyone who says that money is not important is typically broke. So I'll ask to see their bank account when they say it's not important, or if they don't honor money, then they just don't understand how important it is to serve others. Bill Gates has dedicated his life to his foundation with his wife Melinda. Warren Buffett has given $30 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So imagine if that money was never generated, there's this recycling and flow that happens. Just like water recycles on Earth, money is the same way. It's circulated. If Earth doesn't circulate its resources, it dies. If the body doesn't circulate blood, it dies. If an economy doesn't circulate money, it dies. There's a recession, depression, and you know what happens then. So the mindset here is that if you change your attitude about money, you will change your life, because money can and will make a difference. And even if you don't keep it, even if you give it away, because you can't really keep until you give something away, you will do good for other people who are in need. Over 2 billion people on Earth go to bed hungry. I think 3 billion people on Earth don't even have hot running water. 3 billion people make less than $2 a day wages. Okay? Ask them how important money can be. Now, money doesn't buy happiness, but in some cases it makes misery a lot better to put up with. So in many cases, it can have a huge impact on entire nations, and it allows people to eat. Well, self-mastery and quantum leap with GBI and Success Resources is important, but let's go back to self-mastery. Every master was once a disaster. And I think it was, it may have been Socrates who said, really the core curriculum of all of humanity is self-awareness, is getting to know thyself. He also said, and it's rarely quoted, that the only way to live with greatness in this world is be the person you pretend to be. So I know that if I wear a mask, the longer I wear it, the more my face will grow to fit it. And if that happens, then I end up not becoming who I am. So self-mastery is this deep self-awareness of being the person I pretend to be and having this sense of awareness so that other people understand who I am, why I'm here, and what I can do for them. And if they do the same, then I can predict them. And if they do the same, I can anticipate what their next move is. And if they do the same, I can trust them. And in business, trust is the lubricant that makes things work. So with self-awareness, although it's not really talked about in business as much, it is the lubricant that makes business tick, because business owners, more than any other group, need to be self-aware because they're responsible for so many people. I'm responsible for hundreds of lives, not just the people who work for me, but their families, their cats, their dogs, their pets. You know, they're relying on me for what they make from the work they do with me. So without that self-awareness, I would be putting their lives in jeopardy, and I would be changing their lives for the worse. So everything starts with self-awareness, and that's why we focus so much on the inner game and to be aware of who people are. And when people become very wealthy, they go back to self-awareness. They go back to spirituality. They go back to the grace of being charitable, you know, and they find that they can't take it with them, so why not make an impact? And the Carnegies and the Mellons and the Gates and the Oprah Winfreys and the J.K. Rowlings of Harry Potter and Michael Dells and Steve Jobs, all of them have had foundations to do the greater good, not just for tax deductions, but to make an impact. Well, in South Africa, the first thing I observed is South Africans, more than Americans, and I'm American, I'm proud to be an American, but South Africans, as I'm training them, are more hungry. They're much more hungry. I've been very, very candid with them in asking them, do they feel, I'll ask them point blank, do you feel that you are in a first world economy, or do you feel that you are in a third world economy in South Africa? And they'll say first world. And I'll say, well, then prove it. Act like it. Don't think it's first world and act third world, right? They're very candid. And so they are very, very hungry, and they're very hopeful. And with Americans, you know, we're hopeful too, but we've gone through our cycles, and we're in the land of plenty. In South Africa, they're a little bit behind the curve socioeconomically, and definitely in business in many areas. So they look to America and other parts of the world, and I believe their passion and their commitment to grow, their passion and commitment to learn, and the conflict of competing intentions, like, are we third world or first world? What really are we? What do we want to do when we grow up? Is there a tall poppy syndrome that we're a part of, where there's a story where a poppy grows in a field of poppies, the other poppies pull them down, right? And there's a syndrome in some countries where that happens, and I try to eliminate that with the mindset. And in South Africa, I find that the hunger, black, white, whatever color, it doesn't matter, whatever ethnicity they're coming from, there's a hunger to grow, and it's such a joy to teach that, because it's a lot easier to feed someone who's hungry than to feed someone who's not hungry. And they're not starving, they're hungry. So I've told them over the years, and I've taught here several times, that hope is not knowing how to get from point A to point B. Hope is simply knowing there is a point B. So give me hope. That's all I need from you, and I can give you the confidence to teach you how to get from point A to point B. So I love the underdog. I'm an advocate for the underdog. And South Africa is an underdog as a country, as a people, but because they're English speaking, I find that there's a disproportionate unfair advantage for me to teach them, because many times I have them pinned up against the Americans. I'm saying, let's go beat them and let's go take money out of other English-speaking countries, and we get, you know, rally cries and people cheer. And I just love their accent too, and they're joyful to work with.
Any last comments?
Well, the most important thing as a final word is that I've always thought that passion produces commitment. And then a mentor of mine taught me that passion doesn't produce commitment. There are many passionate people who are broke. There are many passionate people who are unhappy. There are many passionate people who are passionately suicidal. Passion does not produce commitment. It's commitment that produces passion. T. Harv Eker says, first you need the wood, then you have the fire. To me, the wood is the commitment, and the fire is the passion. So I don't know of any committed person, 100% committed, like all in, playing the game of poker, putting all their chips. I don't know anyone who's unhappy and is 100% committed. Mahatma Gandhi was 100% committed. Martin Luther King was 100% committed. Nelson Mandela was 100% committed. That 100% commitment is leaving nothing out. And so I believe that if we start with commitment and get passionate about that, that will leave a much stronger legacy than if we just focus on passion.